You're listening to the Unwritable Rant podcast with your host, author, and occasional misanthrope, Juliette Miranda. Go to theunwritablerant.com and you can subscribe on iTunes or connect with the show on Facebook and Twitter.
Hey there, y'all. It's Juliette Miranda. You're listening to episode number 46 of the Unwritable Rant podcast. I have an incredible guest for y'all today. But before we get to that, I have a tequila sunrise cocktail in one hand, and I am not going to drink it alone. So y'all, get a glass, raise them up, and let's toast to this episode. Cheers, y'all. That's one hell of a sweet cocktail. Like I said, I'm drinking a tequila sunrise. This is orange juice, Espolòn white tequila, and grenadine. It is a sticky, sweet nightmare of a cocktail. But believe it or not, this just happened to be one of the most popular cocktails of 1972. Legend has it, this drink fueled a whole lot of rock and roll debauchery, and that is exactly why I'm drinking it right now. Because you see, today I am talking to the legendary rock and roll singer Chuck Negron, who is in the band Three Dog Night. From the late 60s to the mid-70s, Three Dog Night was one of the most popular bands in the world. And just to give you an idea of exactly how popular Three Dog Night was, consider this. On September 14th, 1972, Rolling Stone magazine in issue number 117 pictured Three Dog Night on the cover. Now here's how they captioned it. More gold than the Stones, bigger crowds than Creedence, fatter purses than Elvis. That, y'all, was Three Dog Night in 1972. They had 18 consecutive top 20 hits, 4 number 1 hits, and 5 top 10 albums. You know their songs. Joy to the World opens with probably one of the most iconic lines in rock and roll ever. Jeremiah was a bullfrog. Old-fashioned love song, well, this is just a blueprint for today's power ballads. Mama Told Me Not to Come. Come on, y'all. This song is played in just about every single movie about rock and roll. And Chuck definitely had that rock and roll life right down to a nearly tragic heroin addiction. But he's here now. He's 25 years clean and sober. He sounds better than ever as a solo artist. He's touring. And today, he is going to be talking to me about everything. He'll be making revelations about the music and the downfall of Three Dog Night, about addiction and recovery. And now, he's got a new album coming out, and he's going to be on the Rock and Romance cruise. So this guy's got a lot going on. Now, I've been a huge Three Dog Night fan for decades. They've always been one of my favorites, so I have to say this interview was hugely important to me. So I really want to send a big thank you out to Zach at Webster PR for helping us get this arranged. And I also definitely want to thank Chuck, partly for his candor, but mostly for his music and for just being the most resilient man in rock and roll. If you love music, this interview is going to blow your mind. So kick back and check out Chuck Negron.
Just an old-fashioned love song playing on the radio, and wrapped around the music is the sound of someone promising they'll never go.
Hi there, this is Juliette. Is this Chuck?
Yeah.
Hi there, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I've really been looking forward to this.
Great.
So you're on the road right now. Are you playing gigs at the moment?
No, actually, we're on a couple of day break. So Amy and I are home, and we leave again next Wednesday.
Is this a countrywide tour?
Yeah. We're out from June to September.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, it's the Happy Together tour.
Yeah. We're doing over 50 dates.
And then coming up, you're doing the Rock and Romance cruise.
Yes, yeah. That's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
What can you tell me about that? Who else is playing? How long is it?
I think it's 3 days. It's one of the shorter cruises. And to be quite honest, I'd have to have a list in front of me. I do some of these things. I'm not sure who's on this one. Shame on me. But
well, who else really counts, right? You would be my favorite anyway. Well, I know I saw that Barry Williams is the master of ceremonies, which I thought was awesome.
Yes, I know that.
When you're playing gigs like this, do you find it's more difficult to play the more sort of concentrated set where you really have to just focus in on the hits, versus doing a longer show?
It's not difficult. It's just, kind of a longer set for me is fun. You come a long way. You want to do some different stuff. Just doing hits, it's fun. It's easier as far as exerting yourself. I'm there to work, so I'd rather do a 90-minute set or a 75-minute set. So people, get to see a lot of different acts, so they enjoy it.
I have to say, your voice sounds absolutely amazing. How are you maintaining your range?
I warm up. I never warmed up in my life when I was younger. It was just there. I learned just relaxing with my voice. Showing my power right away. Sometimes when you have something, you want to show it. So, just relax and let my voice kind of just slowly get into it. I don't mean I'm not singing. I'm really singing, but I'm not, I'm kind of warming up in a sense. So by the end of the first song, I'm ready to do a little vocalizing.
Well, I think what I admire the most about your show is how you treat your songs. You're playing old-fashioned love song and one with the same respect that you had for them when they were released. How are you personally connecting with the songs today to keep them feeling so fresh?
Well, they're challenging, and at the age I am now, I see how gifted we were. The songs just came, we sang them, and it was worked out. Now I've got to concentrate to make sure I'm doing all the little passing notes and not going sharp or flat. And so it's it's an exercise in trying to really do as perfect a performance as you can. And being an artist, that never happens in your head, never happens. So that's a challenge, and that keeps it fresh for me, is just trying to, as opposed to just going out there and throwing it out there, trying to do it, the best I can. Plus, they're in the same keys. So, of course, that's more challenging than it was when I was 20. So that comes into play, and that makes it a little more exciting because it's a little more difficult.
Well, and it looks like you're just having so much fun with them still.
Oh, I am. I'm having a good time. These are really great songs, and when you hear the beginning of a song start, you hear the audience just swell, and it's a part of their life, and the love and respect they have for the music. It just makes you feel good, and you want to, it makes me more engaged. So I'm not just doing it by rote. Really getting involved.
Well, you've always had such a great knack for choosing just amazing songs with Three Dog Night. I mean, one wasn't almost a single at all. Can you tell me that story?
Well, I've been on Columbia Records as a solo artist for several years, and I met a lot of different writers. And when I was a kid, I was in a group called the Rondells, and that's when the whole Brill Building and Tin Pan Alley and all the great writers were together, and I would go there, several times a week and try to meet them and get their songs. So I was a song guy from the age of 15. So when I was able to get to the writers, it was, something that was very exciting. So when I heard one, it was very maudlin and, kind of just stayed in this tempo. Actually, the tempo of a busy signal was actually the tempo. I knew if I, rocked it up, it would be great. And when one went to number one on record in Record World, I was having dinner with a friend, and Harry Nilsson and George Harrison and Richard Perry, who was a very famous producer, walked into the restaurant. And Harry came up to me and he said, I think I like my version better. and I said, well, you're alone because America likes mine. So, and we became friends because he was kind of a guy that liked to joust. So we became friends.
You were able to put such cool spins on songs. I mean, with the harmonies, the interpretation that you guys put on stuff like One or Joy to the World, it was just so very distinctive. Joy to the World actually wasn't a rock song originally when it came to you, right? Wasn't it almost like a folk song?
Yeah, it was. It was very different than what we did. And initially, Hoyt Axton didn't like it. It was so different from what he presented. But he also had it there were a couple of versions. One of the versions was Jeremiah Was a Prophet. So we really had to change it up, and it goes from D to E. We moved the whole step up in the middle of the song, which is very rare. So we did a lot of things that made it, made it very exciting. Kind of an anthem today as far as young kids go.
How fascinating is it just for you to sit here and see the way that it is, affecting more and more generations of people? That must just feel incredible.
It's a very comforting thing to know that something that you did is being embraced by generations that have no idea of what things were like, how the songs came about, what, the song transcends time, and so that's a very, very rewarding thing, because that doesn't happen with many things.
I read in an interview, you once said that your initial role in Three Dog Night was actually kind of as a third wheel. But it seems to me that you had a much larger position in the band than that.
Yeah, I do. Well, when it started off, I was the third guy that they asked. Kind of had a little audition, and they asked me, and I said, of course. And initially I was just happy to be in the band, and kind of Danny ran things, and Corey was jousting for position. That's the way things happen in bands. And it wasn't until the very first single was picked, which was One, when Danny heard that One was picked, he really kind of, I didn't know, but he kind of turned on me. I don't know if that's the correct word, but what he did was he called Corey, and of course, Corey would have rather have one of his songs. So, Danny kind of stirred up some stuff, and Corey, went, yeah, we shouldn't have that. It should be a group song. That was their idea. It should be a group song, which I understand, by the way, but they didn't tell me. They went to the management and then went to the record company and had the song pulled in lieu of another song called Nobody, which I brought to the band. It was my song. When I found out in a very embarrassing way. I found out in a meeting with the record company when I thanked the president, what are you talking about? And I went, well, One. He said, One's not the single. So it was, it was awkward. And what hurt was that they didn't even tell me. I mean, they just changed it like I was nothing. So when a couple of other singles were released and they didn't make it, I did the same thing they did. I went to the record company and I said, you don't understand, this is a hit record. You were right. Every night I sing this song, it gets the greatest ovation, and it's not even an up-tempo song. It's a mid-tempo. They released it in Northwest, and within 2 to 3 weeks, it was number one. And they went with it, and it came out first number one. So I had to assert myself and move in. Else, the band was going to hurt itself. I really felt that these guys' egos were hurting the band as opposed to, helping the band. And that's when my role became completely different. And it wasn't so much that the band looked to me. They did after a while, but initially I was like a traitor. That I went to the record company and did all this stuff. And I was really separated from the band. But who looked to me was the record company. And the next record, they called me and they said, what do you have in the can for the new album, which was Suitable for Me? Because we want to go with your voice. And I said, Easy to Be Hard to Hit. And that went to number one on Record World, too. So after that, we were doing TV all the time. So as far as Three Dog Night goes, I was the face of the band, because I was doing all the TV show. Not that I was the guy in the band. We really had a talented band where, Corey could have been the guy because he's saying he was as good as I was. Danny wasn't quite as good as I was. And I found out later it's usually the weaker link that kind of stirs up the stuff. So, Corey and I had several hits before Danny even had a first single, which was Liar. So I was forced to move forward, which is not a role I wanted. It was not a role I wanted. And I paid dearly for doing it because I was chastised. But I found out how strong I was, that it didn't stop me. And just being the person I was, everyone came around. They realized it wasn't ego. At first, I thought it was ego. I mean, ego. I did something for the band. And if it was ego, I mean, it was definitely a Muhammad Ali thing. This is number one, and it went to number one. everything came together, and the band came together. Unfortunately, Danny's role, because it's a business of doing things, and you have to. Your credibility doesn't hold true by just saying you're running the band if you're not, coming with the goods. So he finally fell by the wayside, not but from us, not by us. We loved it. He was another guy in the band. He was as important as anybody else because, we had to do harmony. We had to, 7-guy band. It takes every guy to do it, but by the record company. And he knew that, and it really hurt him. And he got himself into trouble. He was one of our first casualties with drugs and alcohol.
But did it ever feel like it was almost too much too soon? You guys were pretty much releasing albums every couple of months, it seemed like.
Oh, it was ridiculous. What happened? We had management that really was kind of an old school thing. They really didn't believe, and they never had anyone that was around. They were managing Steppenwolf, who was doing really well. And before that, they were managing the Turtles, who left them. But the Turtles, they had no idea the Turtles could be going on. So they didn't have any long-term goals. They had short-term goals. So everything was get the money now. And so they made a deal for 2 albums a year. And then we toured for about 210 days a year. And that broke up. That inevitably, we were in our 20s, so we went a long time. But we went, 7 years doing that. And eventually, we were just creatively dried up. We were physically and mentally exhausted, and our own management had burned us out.
It's very sad because you guys had something that was just so special, and it's heartbreaking that it had to end that way.
Yeah, well, we were really tough guys. I don't mean we were tough guys, but we were, internally tough, and no one wanted to be the guy that said, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, we need a break. We need we should take off. I went to the manager and I said, what we should do, because we were going to have, Corey wanted Danny replaced because Danny wasn't showing up, didn't show up for the whole album. Matter of fact, Black and White, Corey and I put together.
Really?
Yeah. And Corey did most of the work on it because Danny didn't show up. And finally, Danny comes from the vocal. The lead vocal had to be pasted from about 10 different tracks, and they were changing tracks on syllables and to get one word. The poor guy. There's also the celebrity part of it. And Danny was a really fun guy, and everyone really liked Danny because he was a good guy. So Danny was out there with the Beatles, with everyone, Brian Wilson, having parties at his house every night. And he partied all night and slept all day, and got really heavy into drugs and cocaine and pills and booze. And by the daytime, which was when we actually worked like a business. I mean, we went in there around 3:00 in the afternoon. I mean, it was very different than a lot of acts. We went in and then we worked, until 2, 3 in the morning. So anyway, Danny Corey wanted him replaced. He said, I don't want to work with this guy. He said, well, I'm not working with this guy. He doesn't show up. But Danny really didn't even know the position that he was in. So I went to the manager and I said, we should take off a year. He said, a year? What are you, crazy? You'll be gone. And I said, well, I think if we don't take off a year and just recoup, I think if we take off a year within 3-4 months, this band's going to be nuts to get back in the studio. I think
well,
we'll be out of our mind.
You're going to be getting bored or whatever, but you needed that break, yeah.
Because I knew from when we would go for a gig in Hawaii or England, Europe, we'd go early, and by the first week or so, I wanted to get the hell out of there and do some work. So anyway, but he went, no. And I found out later their goal was, when the band dies, they move on. We didn't have guys in our corner. We didn't have that.
Right. And weren't they fueling, some of your drug use as well?
It's a terrible thing to say, but I don't even know why I'm saying it to you, but I'm going to say it. Danny was kind of the social butterfly and kind of in with a lot of things. So Danny was the first guy that ever gave me pills. Danny was the first guy that ever gave me cocaine. So he was kind of ahead of it. And I was, an addict, alcoholic, in training. I was, I was predisposed to a condition. So when I started, I liked it. And my thing was, the only way I stopped one thing was by doing another. I just didn't stop, and eventually I was on heroin. But I was the third guy that really became a casualty. The first guy that was replaced before Danny was Joe Shermy, cocaine paranoia, and he got us in trouble in New York. He got us in a very, very bad situation. We had to let him go, and that was a shame because he was kind of part of the heart of the band. So when we replaced him, the band was never the same. It was never the same, and we were good, so we went on, but it never had the magic again. It never had the magic again, although we had hit records. And then, of course, Danny. And then when Danny was replaced, I kind of started getting worse. I started doing heroin, and I wasn't I was doing it, if you can, casually. I wasn't doing it every day. And Corey and I got into a fight somewhere in America. I don't know what it was, because he was upset my wife was there and I was always late. And, doing kind of the stuff I guess that Danny was doing.
Right.
After the fight, he said, I quit after the Greek Theater is over. And after the Greek Theater, it was over. And that was, 76, I guess. Then with no work and, rich, being wealthy, I just went on this long heroin run for 3 or 4 years. And then Danny and Corey called me when I actually was in the hospital because I got hepatitis from the life I was living. And they called, actually they didn't call me, they called my father said they wanted to get the band back together. And I was very sick. I was almost in the hospital with hepatitis. They weren't sure if I was going to live because I didn't go in for a long time. That's when I was bad. That's when I was really bad. When we got back together in the 80s. But in the 70s, when we made all our albums, I was there. I gave them their first number one. I gave them their last number one in the show Must Go On. I gave them their first top 40 song. I gave them their last top 40 song, Till the World Ends. So, I was there. I did my work. I did the tours. In the 80s, that's when it really got bad, and the worst time in my life, because these two guys treated me like I've never been treated in my life, like I was a piece of dirt. I was there just so they could work, the original people, and it was terrible. They literally abused me, the way they talked to me, the way I got pneumonia. And when I went in the hospital, the doctor said he needs to be admitted. He's very sick, and they went, no, we're working. And then finally I collapsed. And this is months later, I was shaking and shivering, and they took me into the hospital, and the doctor just didn't listen to them. He just admitted it. So admit this guy. The road managers, this is how ugly it gets. The road manager went out and found a doctor and got Dilaudid. Dilaudid is a very heavy narcotic pain medication, like oxycodone.
Right. It was a substitute for heroin.
Yeah, it was a substitute for heroin. So they went out and got it. And, I had actually, started my kick, and I was feeling, bad. So anyway, when they had that, I didn't tell them to get it. I don't know who told them to get it. But as soon as they came to the hospital, they gave it to me, and I took it and was back to work. So these guys actually not only,
wow.
They actually helped me get high.
In your book, you chronicle a lot of the substance abuse that went on. And
yeah, I don't even remember what's in the book.
Did you ever worry when you were working on the book that you were revealing too much?
Oh, no. Actually, to be honest, when you're in a band, there's stuff you can reveal that will really hurt people. I did none of that. I might have talked to what I believed was things they did wrong in their character, but I never told the secrets. I never gave up the stuff. I didn't. So no, I didn't. I was very careful not to do that.
The book is just so It's so honest, and it just you pulled no punches, but
Yeah, I mean, the most of the time I was telling my story about how pathetic I was. I didn't even address them. When I addressed them, it was basically to show, how ugly it can get.
your book reminded me a little bit of one written about the same time period called Wonderland Avenue by Danny Sugarman, detailing, descent into heroin and the music industry. He was he worked with the Doors and Iggy Pop.
I know him. Actually, his brother's my doctor.
Really?
Yeah, Joe Sugarman.
Wow, that book was one of the first books I read about rock and roll, and it had such an impact on me. So when I read yours, I was brought back to it because I felt like the stories were very parallel.
Yeah, I didn't read his book, so I don't know. But yeah, it was. He was a heroin addict.
Well, you've been clean and sober for 25 years now.
Yeah, 25 years in September.
How have you changed as a musician?
Well, I'm much clearer. My writing is better. I've written most of the songs on the new record. I'm just more alive, more engaged, more grateful. The things that make someone a well-rounded, happy person make me a better musician.
Now, talking about the new album, I know you did some work on it with your daughters as well. What was it like recording with them?
Yes, it was great. I wanted to do it with them because one of them, my 22-year-old, Charlotte, she just graduated Cal Arts, and she was involved in their music program. Wants to be in music, and she's not sure, what end, although she used to sing with me on the stage, on several different occasions. She sang at the Hollywood Bowl with me on the stage.
Oh, wow.
She was 9 years, maybe even younger, and got on that stage, and 17,000 people didn't bat an eye. Just got out and sang, big voice. Yeah, and she did it over and over. So she wanted to do that. And, now she's not sure. My 15-year-old also wanted to do it, but then when she initially heard her voice in the studio, she didn't like her voice. She thought she was better than she was, and I said, "You know what, honey? It's all about singing and finding your voice. Sometimes it just doesn't pop up. You need to work for it." Because I was a different singer 6 months after my first tour than I was before, and I wouldn't have known that if I didn't go on my first tour. I became a powerhouse with a range that I'd never had before, and it was just due to the work and finding out what you had. So let's find out, what you had. So I wanted to see if they enjoyed the process, because it's something they were interested in. I wanted them to see what a commitment it was, and you had to be prepared, and you had to work long hours. Of course, she's 15, so there wasn't.
There's a different concept.
I'd be very, very careful. And I had to make sure she ate, which I would forget. And then I'd see her kind of crashing. My girlfriend would go, "We're going to eat." I ordered some food. Like, "Oh, yeah, God, I forgot. Please remind me." But, she just got better and, better and better. But the most important thing I wanted, and it actually happened, was I wanted them to see who I was, who their father was most of the time. And most of the time was when I was working. And they saw, and they actually, my older daughter, they were all talking, and I went, "What's up?" And my older daughter said, "You're really, really very calm and relaxed here, and you don't get excited," because I had a tendency to get a little, I guess short, because my time at home sometimes was this relaxing time. I'm much better now. That's what happens to an artist. Everything becomes about you. Everything. Don't you know I'm tired? Like everything.
Bring me my tea. Bring me honey. I need it. Yes.
Yes, please. Don't you know I'm dying? I feel like I have cancer. Terrible. It's a terrible thing to say. So we did some great stuff, and they were great. But the funny thing was, my 15-year-old, we're in between takes, and the engineer's going, there's a clicking going on, Chuck. I'm gonna have to stop and find this, because I got to find out if it's going on tape. So I said, well, just run the track, see if it's on tape. And he runs it. And I said, run it back a little. And before the take starting, right? He goes, there it is. And then it stops. And Amy, my girlfriend, goes, oh, she's been texting.
No. Oh, well, you know what? You only make that mistake once.
Yeah. In between takes. That's what they do. And then sometimes, they finish turns. It ended up being a good process. A friend of mine is mixing some of the tunes right now. Hopefully we have something.
When do you expect it to be released?
I don't know. I've got to see next year for sure. Let's see when this guy finishes it, because he's a real perfectionist. He's also doing some remix. He's actually adjusting some of the music. He thought it was too dense. In other words, and I get very dense. I seem to layer. It's just my background. I like to layer stuff, and not only that, it was so much fun. I probably put in more than needed, so it doesn't breathe as well as some of the stuff, the stuff that's out now, which is much more sparse than the music we made years ago. They have beats. They have a groove. And, a couple of hook sounds and some vocal, there's not as much going on. So he just he's a contemporary a producer, and he just, thinks that it would be more suitable if we got rid of some of the stuff and just featured the voices.
And simplified it.
So I said, simplify it. So I said, go for it, see what we have. So I'm waiting to hear the first couple of things, because I might not like it at all, and then I'll just go with what I have. But I think I'm going to like this, because this guy is just a brilliant guy, and he's seen these girls grow up. Actually, he recorded Charlotte when she sang with me when she was, how old? She was 4, I think.
Now, I heard a rumor that there might be some unreleased Three Dog Night tracks on this album. Is that purely rumor, or is it possible?
No, it's true. We're trying to figure out how we're going to do this. And it might be done this way. We might do there's only 3 unreleased Three Dog Night tracks that were ever left. And all of the stuff that we did, there are only 3 completed. Well, not completed. They weren't completed. They're almost complete. So we're thinking of putting them just on the records that the Kickstarter people are getting.
Ah, okay.
Some are getting albums, some are getting CDs. So we're thinking of just doing that, and then putting out a Three Dog Night hits album, actual original Three Dog Night hits album, with the 3 songs for the public.
Now, where did these songs come from?
They came from an album that we did with Jimmy Einer. Now, Jimmy Einer, he produced many people, and he was very prepared. Our approach was very serendipitous. I brought in my songs. Some guys didn't. Danny very rarely brought in a song. Corey brought in some songs. We just go about it. When we worked with him, we recorded as much stuff as we could. In this one session, I believe it was in Caribou, up at Jim Guercio's place. And we went up, we did 3 extra tunes. One is a solo by me, and the other 2 are group songs, which the 3 of us sing, which is really great, because we've got, 2 songs with all 3 of us singing lead, and harmony. So that's what that happened. But the other producer we had, we were lucky to get finished. You know what I mean? It's just, we worked very hard on this stuff. Jimmy, wanted to keep things moving, and it ended up we got much, much more done. The only 3 we had were when we worked with him.
Now, were these just tracks that you happen to have in your archives, or,
No, what happened was, years ago, when Three Dog Night was with ABC, we had a meeting, and our management, everyone was there, and it was basically to see if we could get more money. In other words, we'd gotten bigger, and we wanted more royalties, and blah 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 blah. In the meeting, he said no. Jay Lasker said no, and I'll make it short. It's actually a longer story, but I wanted to talk to him, so him and I talked, and I said, what can we get? And I just read, and he basically said, well, I don't know. And I just read that Ray Charles got his masters. He was going to own his own masters. So I said, well, I like the masters. And he laughed, and, not a mean laugh, but, and he said, look, Chuck. And then he stopped. He's really just a cool guy. But we got along. Well, I was giving him hits. Of course we got along. I'm sure we wouldn't have got along if I wasn't. He said, I'll tell you what, if you really believe that you guys are going to keep going, I'll give you your masters from the next album on. So I said, great. I said, okay, great. We'll put that in the contract. Now, he didn't think we were going to do 7 more albums. It was a 25 years. And it wasn't like we got them right away. It's 25 years, and they wouldn't bend. So 25 years later, we get the royalties, and I send my paperwork to Universal and everything, and they don't even get back to me. Finally, I got a lawyer, and we go there, and they're going, well, Danny and Corey don't want to get their masters, that we're keeping them, and it's a 2 out of 3 vote that you lose, which is bullshit. The individual masters went to the 3 of us individually, because we knew back then, in 25 years, we might not even be alive or talking to one another.
Right.
So individually, they would go to each one who could independently do whatever they wanted with them. I had to fight them, and I won. Not Danny Corey, but this shows where they were. They just went against me. So I at the cost of a lot of money, I went to court and I beat them. And so I own the masters. So I call for the masters, and these asses tell me that these masters are gone. There was a fire, and they're gone.
Oh no.
And evidently, I call my lawyer because he was very, very well known that actually had some lawsuits and stuff. But because it was an act of God, they're not responsible. Blah, 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 blah. I didn't know a fire was an act of God, but whatever. There's actually just one record that I don't have. There's just one or two that I don't know. I get a call from a guy who used to manage us many years ago. He says, look, I'm moving. I got all this stuff. I got all these tapes here. I go, it's the tapes.
No.
It's the masters. Of the 2 we don't have.
You were meant to have them.
And he says, look, I need to know, do I give this to the record company or you? Because I don't want to give them to Danny or Corey because, I know you'll do something creative. So I said, yeah. And I get get the paperwork from my lawyer and I have it send it over to him, and he sees it and he, boom, just come over and pick it up. I pick it up. I go, I find a place that even has a damn machine. They don't have the machine with the. So anyway, I go and we listen to it. You only listen to it once. You got to bake them. You probably shouldn't listen to it all. So anyway, I see these 3 songs. I said, could you check this to see if they're there? And we go and they're there. So I go. I have tapes baked. Boom, 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 and we have them. And you know what? When this record comes out, Universal is not going to have it. Danny and Corey are not going to have it. Because they were burned in a fire.
Exactly. Yeah, act of God,
Yeah, and since we independently own them, it's just that's
exactly that's that.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of giving the Kickstarter people that gave me the money to do it. Although I spent as much of my own money on it, it's just the way it goes. Took a lot of time. Yeah, so I've got these 3 songs. Give that to them, and then put out. I'm going to look for some good distribution. I've already put out 1 record on Shout Records. It was live, 3 Dog Night Live. I already put that out from the masters. And I did okay. I thought it would do better, but then I was told that I really needed a little more promotion and stuff like that. And I never saw it on iTunes or anything, so they really didn't do the whole job.
No, but I'm sure with this new release, particularly with some new tracks on it like that, I know I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah, it's good. I embellished some of the songs, and I'm thinking of doing the original versions the way we did it back then, and then, with some of the embellishments of up to date. I don't know. They might not even be able to tell, so I don't know what I'm going to do. But, it seems like the fans want to get as much as they can get, that they'd rather have both than one. So we'll see. But, they were there to the tune of, almost $80,000. I want to give them that, just them, and then as opposed to putting it on my solo record, which I think would be kind of convoluted. I don't know how it would fit.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. Yeah, I'm not sure if that would be a match exactly.
Yeah. So it might be better suited just, finding someone who's actually, I talked to one distributor who liked it but wanted more, I said, hey, it would be nice with a whole album, wouldn't it? This is it, So I'm looking around. I'm not looking around now. I'm touring, but when I get back, I will.
Now, on your blog, I was reading an essay that you had written, and you made a really interesting point about how society mistakenly looks at celebrities these days who are suffering and dying from drug abuse, saying that they're not looking at it as the tragedy that it is. I'm really curious, what do you think that we can do to change this perspective?
I think we need to educate the public that this is a disease. And I think if you can change the mindset of someone being sick as opposed to someone being cool or whatever their perspective is, it changes. That's not an easy thing to do, but if you can, my understanding that people look at sick people much differently, and young people look at sick people as, they're sick, just trying to, that it really is the disease, that they're sick, they're sick people, and, some of them just, once they get started, they can't stop, and the only way to stop is to make them stop for, a long enough time so the obsession and the physical craving go away, and, and then hopefully they'll have a chance, but it's a very powerful thing. The thing for me is that what I want is to get people to know don't even try it. Don't even fool around with it. That's why the thing with pot made me concerned. Anyone who's sick and needs pot, I think they should have all they need. I'm not a doctor. I don't, a chemist. I don't know this stuff, but I think you're rolling the dice because there are kids, many, many millions and millions of people that are predisposed to a condition of addiction. It opens a door that makes them feel different than the person next to them. It makes them feel 20 times more euphoric. It makes them feel 20 times more beautiful. And all the other things that come along with addiction, with addictive people. So I'm trying to get, like with my daughter, my youngest daughter, and my 22-year-old, my Charlotte, you can't even try this. You can't even try this. It's very sad that you can't do what your peers do, but it's not a good thing anyway. And, so far my 22-year-old's never had a drink, and she's doing well. Now my 15-year-old, I don't know, although, I've talked to them, and when she went to a concert, I told you, you got to have your water in your own bottle. Don't take anything from anybody. If you put down your water, that's it. You don't drink it or Coke or whatever. You got to protect yourself because there's predators out there. So I do the best I can. But some of these kids can't try it. They're going to be in trouble if they do. It's a scary thing when it's made available. I mean, Portland, that whole thing is going to blow up in their face when all these young people are in harm's way and getting killed and driving, because it really affects driving. It's really, very cavalier thing to throw it out there to be, I want to be loved by everybody here. Let's tell them, everyone can get high. Everyone can't get high. Some people can't get high. They're in trouble if they get high.
Well, and I would think that, with your example, you're also working with Cry Help in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, I just did a benefit for them. I took my band and we went in, did several songs for a barbecue they had for their alumni. They try to get alumni in there and get, donations and, because the Cry Help's the only facility, maybe in the world, 50% of the beds are free.
Wow.
50%. That's, a lot of these guys that are taking contributions, I got like 10% of the beds for free, but at any rate, so I was just there. I haven't sponsored anyone there for a while because it's a commitment. Sure. You got to take someone out every week and, be with them during the week. And I just can't do it. And, And what happened was when I was working, I took a new guy on, and it just, didn't do a good job, and he didn't want to let me go. And finally, I just had to make him let me go. I had to get someone else for him because it was, just not, he wasn't getting the right treatment.
Well, I think with your history and the example that you're setting, I mean, having been sober for 25 years, and being out there today, still doing what you love and doing it so well, I think that you are absolutely the best example that anybody could see.
Oh, you know what? That's very kind. I hope I am an example. In this world, and it's a thing that I've been aware of a lot of my life. And I'm not. This isn't critical what I'm saying. Although the word is a critical word. People are very superficial, but that doesn't mean they're mean or ugly. They like things that look good. They like things that entertainment. And through my life, I have been appealing to people, and it has afforded me a condition, an opportunity to help people. And when I started realizing at my age, I was still, okay. I mean, I still, people were attracted to me. And I knew that God had done that because God knows people are superficial.
I think it's fair to say that you're probably one of the most resilient men in rock and roll.
I am very resilient, but that's all God. Let me tell you something, that's God. And that's what I tell the kids. I said, you have to understand this. If you want to be in this business, you must be resilient. You must be able to get up. When you don't get a job, you go look for another one. And you don't ever sleep on anyone's couch waiting for a gig. You go get a job, you feed yourself, and you have some self-esteem. And at night, you put hours aside to learn your craft. So you're actually doing as much or more work than guys that are just hanging around all day. It's never ending. You got to be resilient. You got to not forget physical, the emotional, the trauma of life beat you down.
Well, I really, really want to thank you for talking to me today. I've enjoyed it so much. I was looking forward to it. This has just been a huge thrill for me.
Oh, you're very kind. I will talk. That I know sometimes I go on.
No, it's great. I love it.
Okay, good.
You take care of yourself, Chuck.
Okay, you too. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.